Thank you very much for joining us today. So this is how to make your content accessible, webinar by the Digital Culture Network, which is being hosted by Roberta Beattie. Just before we get going, just to do some quick housekeeping for you. As I've mentioned, I'm really sorry if I'm repeating myself for those people that have been on, but this event is being live captioned. I've pasted some instructions into the chat. So if you do need to switch captions on, then you can do so by following those instructions in the chat. We're going to be having a Q&A session with Roberta and some of our panelists at the end of today's session. So if you do have any questions whatsoever, you can use the Q&A function within Zoom, which should be in the bottom banner. And we'll try and get around to them as much as we can at the end of today's session. So any of those questions that come in about the content, then please do let us know via the Q&A and we'll do our best to get round to them at the end. If you have any tech issues, if you can't hear or anything like that, please do let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to be able to fix those problems for you. But most importantly, this session is being recorded. So after the session has happened, either at the end of this week or the beginning of next, we're going to send you an email. It'll have a link to the full recording. It'll have a link to the presentation slides that we used in today's session, and also any links, resources, extra things that we've mentioned throughout today's session. We'll send you them all. So please don't stress about remembering everything. We'll send it all to you within the next week, so you'll have that to hand for future use. So that's it, that's the boring housekeeping out of the way. We really hope you enjoyed today's session. I'm now going to pass you over to Roberta, who's going to be leading on the content today. Roberta.
Thank you so much, Nick. Welcome everyone, it's lovely to see so many of you here today. My name's Roberta Beattie and I'm the website tech champion for the Digital Culture Network. I've got over 25 years experience. I know I don't look old enough, but I've been working in digital marketing and web design for about 25 years. Over the last 18 months, I've been helping loads of organisations with their website accessibility, and I hope to share some great tips and insights with you today during the presentation. This session has been designed to help you understand how to make your content accessible. Today we're going to be diving into what accessibility is, what it can look like in practice, and we're also going to be looking a little bit around accessibility and social media. Then we'll look at legislation and some tools and resources. It's worth noting that much of what I cover, as Nick said, will be a brief overview, but we'll make sure that we send out lots of resources and links to you after the session. So after a 5-minute break, Gary Lockton from Grandad will show us around the UAccess accessibility tool, and Darren Smallman from TENS Festival is going to be sharing his journey with accessibility on their website too. So let's start with the basics. What is accessibility? This is important to understand because understanding what it is going to help you make accessible decisions when creating your content. If you're creating content that's accessible and you're creating content that you're going to be creating content that works for everyone. You might have expected me to start off with legislation, rules and regulations, and those things are important, but it's not the first thing you want to think about, as you might find yourself a bit blinded by a lot of information and worried about where to start. It's not about checkboxes or ticking boxes or checklists either. Accessibility is about people. It's about understanding how people consume your content and creating great user experiences that work for everyone. Essentially, accessibility is about removing the barriers that prevent anybody from being able to understand or interact with your digital content. Now, there are 3 modes of accessibility. There's permanent, which are things like that won't go away or get better. Examples include profoundly blind or hearing loss. There's temporary accessibility considerations that last for a finite period of time, and examples of that can include a broken arm or tiredness. And then there's situational accessibility considerations that are due to the situation you find yourself in. For example, maybe you've got slow internet, you've got screen glare, or there's a noisy room, something like that. And those three modes of accessibility are generally going to fall into one or more of these barrier categories. Cognitive, that's anything related to the brain and processing information. Visual, anything relating to sight. Auditory, anything related to hearing. Motor, anything related to the physical body and movement. And speech, and that's anything related to the function of speaking. So let's get stuck right in and take a look at what accessibility looks like for people using assistive technologies and understand what this can mean for you when you're making things accessible. I want to start off by showing you what it's like to use a screen reader, because I'm guessing a lot of you probably don't know what it's like to use one. So this video will show us a bit of an insight into that.
Using a screen reader. Hadi's an accessibility expert, and he's also a user of accessible technology. He uses a refreshable braille display and screen reading software that reads everything on the screen.
I am blind, and I use a screen reader program at home and here, on everywhere. Screen reader program is a software that communicates with the operating system and conveys the information to me.
Welcome. Blank. Accessible pages. Design features of this design of this.
You know, even we are reading as a sighted person, you do not read every content at the same speed, right? Sometimes you have to make a pause and then review what you have read and then digest the information. For us, it's the same thing. When we are reading, for example, a normal conversation, we can read it very fast. But when we are reading technical content, then we go a little slower, we make more pauses.
Accessible University 1.
I have slowed down my screen reader program.
Banner. Heading level 1 graphic accessible university. Banner end.
But if it is, for example, about email, I can go
Faster, 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 faster. Main menu navigation region. Show menu keyboard shortcuts button. Blank. Above menu submenu collapsed.
I can go that fast.
Link collapsed academics.
Interestingly, did you notice how fast he skimmed through the content? But it makes sense though, right? You don't want to read every bit of content on a web page. We all want to be able to skim through and slow down for the bits we think are important. So in order to let people do that with your site, you need to think about some rules. There are a few rules that you need to follow. Probably the first thing to mention is page titles. Page titles are instructions inside the code of your page, and these don't actually show up on the page itself in the content, but search engines like Google will use them to create blue links in the results, in the search results. You can see an example there in the image. They also appear in your browser tabs at the top of the page. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but they've all got little bits of writing on. There are lots of great reasons why you should write meaningful page titles. But for example, if you've got multiple tabs open, you'll know which one is which. Descriptive page titles are also going to help you come up in relevant searches on Google, because this is one of the things it looks at to understand what your content's about. Page titles give everyone a good idea of what your page is about broadly, and it's an easy thing to get right to make your site more accessible. The other thing you need to think about is your site needs to be easy to navigate with a keyboard. And the way this works is when you press the tab key, it'll go through each one of the links on your page, so that when you find the right link, you can then press the enter key to go to the page the link is referring to. The first thing the tab key should activate should be a skipped content link, as this is a great way to allow people to get to the good stuff on your page quickly. On the Digital Culture Network site, you can see it in action. The skip link, the skip content link only appears when you hit the tab key for the first time. But by having it as a hidden element, it means that we can keep the design simple, and it removes confusion for people that don't need to use it. Now, when you're using the tab key to navigate the site, adding a focus so that it's obvious to the person browsing the site which link is active is a good idea as well. You do this through the coding. And you can see it in action again on the Digital Culture Network site. There's a little box around the link indicating that it's activated on the Ask a Tech Champion link. Next up, I'd say that structuring your content is really important. You can just define the structure by adding tags to your HTML code to name your content areas. This is another way for people to quickly skip through to the bits of content on the page they want to get to. With the main content of the page, using heading tags to structure your content is a really good idea as well. Consistent and logical content order is important because it makes the information you're delivering easier to understand. They're also another thing that screen readers can use to flick through the content of your site and navigate the page. You only need one H1 tag per page. Think of it like the H1 tag is the main title of the page and the rest of the sections will fall into either H2 or H3 and so on. It's important to use them in the correct order to allow people to understand the flow and importance of the content on the page. This means they can easily tell which bit of text relates to which heading and skip to the bits they want to quickly, because that's another way that screen readers can navigate a page through the page titles. Alt tags are also very useful. Alt tags are little descriptions of images on your web page that allow screen readers to describe what that image is to the user. A top tip here is to use factual short descriptions, generally no more than 125 characters if possible, and describe the image kind of accurately. If the image is a design element, you can add an alt tag with no description in it so that readers can easily skip over it as well. Because if an image doesn't have a blank alt tag, a screen reader will just read out the image name, the file name, which can be very frustrating for your visitors, just obviously not relevant or good. Descriptive links are also very important. Referring back to the navigating with a keyboard or screen readers, tabbing through the links on the page, if a link simply reads click here, it's not easy to identify what's on the other side of the link. So by using descriptive wording, you're really going to be helping people find the information or resource easily and feel good about the fact that they're clicking on something useful, feel confident. In the example here, you can see that the bottom description is much clearer. You know it's a download and you know it's a PDF, and you also know what the PDF is about. Another important consideration is color contrast. If you're using text above images for backgrounds or on banners, make sure the text has enough contrast to stand out. Poor color contrast ratios create visual barriers, and there are tools like WebAIM and Color Contrast Analyzer that can really help you identify the color contrast issues that you might not realize that you have. So if you're using videos, it's good practice to provide captions so people with impaired hearing can read along with any spoken elements of the film. Captions are added to videos by using something called SRT files, speech reporter text files. These are files with a time code paired to sections of text that relate to the video content. So when the captions show up, they show up at the right time when you're playing the video. The two types of captioning to consider are auto captioning and live captioning. If you're doing live events, YouTube and Google Slides have auto captioning features. Basically, it listens to what you're saying and captions on the fly. It's not always great for accuracy, but it can be a cost-effective way of adding captions. If you're not broadcasting live, a little tip here is to take the strain out of transcribing those videos. You can get your video, upload it to YouTube, allow some time for the system to generate the automatic captions that it generates, and then you can go into YouTube Studio and edit them to make it better, fix typos, correct grammar, that kind of thing. Live captioning, on the other hand, is a lot more accurate. We've got a talented live captioner working with us today from Stage Text, doing a great job. Perfect for webinars and live streaming. The live captioner will join your webinar and type out what you're saying as you're saying it, as you can see her demonstrating to us today. The platforms I know of that support live captioning are YouTube and Zoom and maybe WebEx. And when you set up for a broadcast, a live broadcast, they have an STTR setting that you can copy and give to your live captioner so they can add text to your stream. We find live captioning is a lot more accurate and gives a better experience all round than auto captioning does. You can also consider adding an audio description track for those viewers with impaired hearing. Audio description tracks describe what's happening in a video. So it's worth noting, though, that if you're careful to script your videos well, it reduces the need to do both, because the captions and the video audio should cover most of your needs. So where do you find people to do live captioning? There's an Arts Council sector support organisation called Stage Text that can provide live captioning services. And often what they'll do is they'll provide you with an SRT file to add to your video if you want to upload it to YouTube or preserve it online after the event. There's another arts sector support organisation called Vocalize that can provide audio descriptive services. And again, they can also provide an audio descriptive track for you to include on your recordings of sessions. Notifications and form error feedback. Well, that's a bit of a mouthful, but what I mean here is for any forms that you put on your site, think about what happens if someone doesn't fill it in right, and the language or prompts you use to tell them to change it don't make sense. We've probably all suffered filling in a bad form at one point or another. So if you put error messages underneath the fields where you want people to fill in, it's a lot easier for them to see what their mistakes were and make them right. It's much better than putting them all in a long list at the top. Also, sending people to a thank you page after a form gets submitted is a good signal to tell people that the form went through okay. I've seen forms that end up on a blank page, or the form clears its data, and that's no good because you leave people wondering if it went through at all. Now, obviously, mobiles and devices are so important. People are going to be accessing your content on a wide variety of different devices. And what you need is responsive design. And that means your content scales to fit on any screen size automatically. Now, it's worth making sure that people can pinch and zoom to control the size of the content as well. And making sure that if you can do that with your content, that you also check any buttons and forms or functionality will work when you've got them zoomed in as well. If you're using sliders or moving banners or animation, make sure people can stop or slow down or pause if they want to, because these can be confusing and distracting for some people. For the text you use on your site, using simple, dyslexic-friendly sans serif fonts makes it easier to read and understand. Sans serif fonts are usually much simpler design-wise, with less details and ticks, and are just less complicated to read than fancy serif fonts. It's also a good idea to make sure you use simple language and keep your sentences short to make them easier to read and understand. And finally, you can make sure you follow most of the rules that I've just talked about for any PDF downloads you might have on your site as well, to make sure that they are accessible too. You can add alt text and all kinds of things in PDFs. I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. A lot of what we've already talked about are the same principles to think about when you're doing your social media posts, but there are a few details I wanted to bring to your attention. On most social media platforms now, you can add alt text to your images by choosing the edit feature. So it's always worth adding them. You can also add alt text to your stories on Instagram or Facebook. If you're using hashtags, make sure you camel case them. Camel casing is when you add a capital letter to each of the words in the hashtag. It makes it easier for screen readers to understand and read them out. It also just makes them simpler to read. The other point about hashtags is to just pop them in the actual post and not in the comments of that post. If you're using emojis, it's good practice to describe what the emoji signifies in the post rather than just having the pointing finger down emoji in that example. I've also said, look at the image below as well. The text tells you what the emoji is signifying. Then, as I mentioned before, it's more or less the same principles that apply to your web content that go for your social media stuff too. So don't forget to use simple language and friendly fonts, caption your videos, and make sure there's good color contrast between text and background images if you're adding text over your images. Now for a little bit about the legislation and the things that you might want to know. The government legislation that came into force last September means that if you're mostly run on public funds, then you're going to need to make sure your website content is accessible to 2.1 WCAG standards, and that you also have an accessibility statement for your site. I've written a good resource to share that I wrote specifically around this subject, which I'll include on the follow-up email. But essentially, what an accessibility statement needs to state is what is and what isn't accessible about your site, and the roadmap and plans you've got in place to fix issues, and your general take on accessibility within your organization. One route is to pay for an agency to perform an audit of your site and come back to you with a list of fixes to hand to your web developer. But if you haven't got the funds or resources to pay an agency to do this, the gov.uk site has a really easy to follow guide to do on how to self-assess. It's really easy to follow, and it walks you through all the basics and tells you the types of things you need to check for. It's mostly what I've covered in this presentation today. And it also tells you how many pages of your site you need to check and things like that. It's really good. If you need to create an accessibility statement for your site without the help of an expert, the W3C have created this handy accessibility statement generator tool that steps you through creating your own. And I'll make sure I send a link for this as well. And also, anyone needing any help, just get in touch with me. I can walk you through it as well. Finally, I thought I'd share a few tips and tools and resources for you to try out. Back to the W3C, who've put together this fabulous free course on accessibility that covers everything you're ever going to need to know. So well worth taking it if you want to get a bit deeper into this subject. Or perhaps you might want to get your web developer to take it so that they fully understand accessibility and what you need. Website accessibility controls. Now, my guests are going to be speaking about these in more detail shortly, but I wanted to mention them here too briefly. Basically, they are overlay control plugins or tools that you can add on top of your website that allow the visitor themselves to control the way your website looks for themselves. Things like font size, color contrast, etc. And adding these controls can be really, adding these controls can be quite useful for some of your visitors, but it won't automatically mean that your site is 2.1 WCAG compliant. So when you're building your site or adding content, you're still going to need to make sure that the things I mentioned earlier are in place on your site. But tools like this can really enhance the fact that your site is accessible and make it easier for people to use the accessibilities you've worked hard on to build in. Finally, accessibility tools and checkers. Well, there are loads of them out there, but I find these two will cover most of the checks you can automate. Google Lighthouse. It's a great little tool by Google that checks your site and gives you an actual list of things that you might want to look at and how to fix them. And there's a Chrome extension that's free, and I'll send out a link for that too. So Google Lighthouse does a quick automated check of the page that you're looking at and generates a report, and you can take that and try to tackle some of the fixes yourself or send them to your developer and then recheck the page when they've been done. WebAIM, I've mentioned this earlier, is a great tool for checking color contrast ratio between foreground and background colors. But I don't think there's anything really that beats the human touch. These tools just simply can't sense check everything. So it's always best to try and do some manual checks as well. Things like intuitive tabbing through links, navigation, or maybe there's something wrong with the way the site works in practice that only a real human can spot. So even better, if you can create a small user focus group to feed back to you on their experiences, this is going to help you pinpoint specific things that you can do to improve your accessibility. All websites should be checked for errors and typos and broken links, and accessibility checks should probably just simply become part of that overall process. It's part of the user experience for everyone. So I hope that's given you a good grounding of the basics and what you need to know. But before we move on to talk about the UAccess tool with Gary and Darren, we're going to have a little 5-minute comfort break. So I'll see you all back here in 5 minutes, which will be 2:32 for the next part of the presentation. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice chance to make a cup of tea or have a little drink or something. I'd like to welcome on our guests now, Gary and Darren from UAccess and Grandad. I'm just going to stop my screen share so that Gary can take over.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Roberta. Thank you. Let me just put this into play mode. Brilliant. Everyone see that okay? I can see your face go red, Roberta, so it must be our slide. Thanks so much. Roberta, thanks so much for inviting us today. Thank you, Nick, too, for making everything work. So Grandad is a digital agency, works a great deal in your space. Excuse me, sorry about that. So I've seen some clients pop up in the chat. So we work with Brighton Fringe, Brighton Dome, Brighton Festival, Sharjah Fringe, Riverside Studios, etc., National Student Drama Festival. So we sort of know the space, but I think our point today, and we're really passionate about it, is that accessibility is not just about compliance, it is about people, it's about that end user. And all your efforts to go out and contact people are attenuated unless accessibility is as good as it can be. And that's really our focus today. So we're talking about compliance, yes, and all of the Roberta said is absolutely right. The new guidance and guidelines are absolutely right. All of the technical elements of your site are important, but there are tools that can help. And these tools are overlays. These are in the user's hands, and they go beyond basic compliance. They can be easy to install, and the user can then instantly change the way that the site is viewed, depending on their particular needs, their accessibility barrier. Now, there are tools like WebAIM, which Roberta mentioned, ColorSafe, which looks at palettes. There's No Coffee, which is a tool that's a Chrome plugin. You can view your site, Contrast Checker, etc. But there are other tools, such as Accessibility and the tool that we've created called UAccess, which actually overlay your site very simply and allow the user to change the way that the site is viewed. The settings that user creates can actually be stored, and often are stored. They don't have to be, but they're stored in cookies. What that means is if a user has got either a temporary or a permanent accessibility barrier, the next time they come back to your site, the site will display in the way that they want it to be. And I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. If we move on to the reason we've created this, really, it's for reach benefits. So according to Scope, 20% of the UK have got some form of disability. That could be as simple as colourblindness, a cognitive issue, a lot of the stuff that Roberta's covered. But the key is it presents the content that you've worked really hard to create and craft. It presents it in the most inclusive way as possible. It also clearly boosts sites' reach. If someone wants to book a ticket or fill in a form or inquire or donate, for a lot of you is obviously key. Become a member or a partner. It really helps with that, and it grows brand impact and loyalty. And in fact, brand, I think we feel, is a big bit of it. Even if a user doesn't have an accessibility barrier, the fact that you've covered this actually boosts your brand image. It demonstrates that you care. It builds that trust, credibility for your brand, and particularly in public sector. We work a huge amount in public sector. That's a huge element. And it removes that block, because if 20% of your audience have got an issue with the way you have decided to deliver your site, tools can help. Some of those tools, like you saw the sort of screen reader technology that Roberta demonstrated earlier, of course, those are user side, but these tools are actually effectively your side. So they're on the site and they can overlay and be there if people need them. So if we just move on. We have a client, well, we have a client on the call, Darren Smallman from Thames Festival, but let's look at another client, which is Southeast Dance. If I just switch out, and hopefully you can see that. So this is the Southeast Dance site. Let me just minimize Zoom so I can see. So this is the Southeast Dance site. As you can imagine, it's a dance organization based in Brighton. But you can see here in the top menu, there's an accessibility option, which is tabbable too, keyboard controlled, as Roberta mentioned. If I click on this link or tab and enter on this link, you can see it brings out a series of options for the user. Again, of course, all tab navigable. And you can see on the left of the tool, we've got elements on readable text, links, page aspects, navigation, etc. So if you focus, and by the way, sorry, I forgot to say, this is southeastdance.org.uk. I believe Nick's got the URL, he can share it. If anyone wants to look at the site themselves, please type that in. So southeastdance.org.uk. And then you can also interact with the tool as I am in this demonstration. So firstly, in terms of text size, and you know, we've all been trying to, well, I'm 51 this year. So we've all looked at our iPhones and found it a bit difficult to read. We can adjust immediately the text size of the site. In this case, we've limited to 125%. But you can see immediately, if I close the tool, how that increases the size of all elements of text across the site. If I go back in, I can also adjust text color. So I can change the color of the core text, and importantly, I can change the background color. So if we do something red on green or complementary colors, if I close the tool, you can see now that all text on the site is now red out of green. That may not look great for you, but it may well be that it's actually the best for that particular user. Importantly, as well, as Roberta mentioned, we can change fonts, and this is all working as an overlay on the site, so it can change fonts that are HTML driven. This is Open Dyslexic, which is a font that changes the weight between the top and bottom of a character. And you can see there that it changes the elements of the site to make sure that you can actually use Work Sans, for instance, which takes away any serif fonts. But if we work on Open Dyslexic, change the background color, you can see there that the entire site, whatever page we navigate to, then is set in that way for that user. So let me just reset, because all of these, as you can see, all of these settings overlay on each other. So let me, and in fact, you can see that Open Dyslexic is now used in the tool itself. But let me reset. So the site now comes back to its original format. We then have another section which is based on links, and links are a crucial element. Yes, you can tab navigate, but we can actually highlight the color of links, and we can also highlight in terms of the background. So let me close the tool. You can see now that very clearly all link elements on the site are highlighted. So anything in green becomes a link, including, lovely, the fact that we designed the site. There we go. If I go back and let me just reset. So if I then look at navigation, importantly, we've got the ability to stop sound, and Roberta mentioned that, and also stop animation. Now, those can be, for people with cognitive issues, those can be really important elements. So many of you may have a carousel or something that's animated on the page. That can be very distracting, and those can be automatically switched off through this tool to allow people to access it more easily. Let me pop back to page aspect. Now this is about contrast. Roberta again mentioned this. We can change contrast, and you can see there on the left, the contrast, the page is being adjusted. But we can also make the site entirely grayscale, or we can invert the site. And this is, even if you don't have an accessibility barrier, if I just close the tool, you can see how that changes the entire look of the site. And you can see that actually may make it easier for any of us to view just by inverting the colors. Of course, it affects everything, images, etc. If I go back and I reset, then you can see what the original site looks like. So that's just a quick demonstration, but I'll come back to the presentation. The key thing with these sort of tools is they are very easy to add. I think I saw a question come up in the chat. It doesn't require recoding the site. These can be overlaid on any site, whether it be Drupal, WordPress. You can put a simple piece of code into Tag Manager, or there are plugins that we've created for either Drupal or WordPress, but they're very easy to overlay, and that's the key element. So they don't, as Roberta said, they don't take away from WCAG compliance, because the tool can't be seen by readers, but for the user, as you can see, they have a clear benefit. You can use them in staging and test them, as well as live, and it is literally a snippet of code that you add. They don't require any redesign of the site, as I said, and they really help to make sure that the functions and the content that you've worked so hard on are displayed as best they can be to the end user. So talking of end users, Darren Smallman is here with us, a client of ours across multiple clients actually. Darren, can I hand over to you to talk about Thames Festival and how you found your access?
Certainly can. How you doing, everyone? So I'm going to talk a bit about Thames Festival Trust and our sort of journey over the last couple of years. When I started the organisation, we looked at general brand and all our digital assets, and I looked at how we could better use this for the new age and in digital ways. So it was really important for us to bring digital in to the organisation as not just a marketing tool, but also to use it through events and to try and reach the widest audience as possible in the way that they feel most comfortable. So when we looked at like redeveloping the website, we kind of started from a different perspective and looked at kind of our branding and looked at like kind of how can we simplify everything we do and make it as easy and try and limit the barriers people have in accessing the work that we're doing. So very much digital and kind of building pathways and making sure there's an easy passage for people to get from A to B to C to D in anything that we're doing is kind of the key part of what we're trying to build. And working into that, we kind of spoke to Grandad at length about simplicity of our digital tools and our brand. Tried to look at how to simply use simple colors and fonts and the way we phrased all the terminology throughout our digital tools, and very much looked at kind of how those can be tailored to fit a wide audience, because it's all great to have a complex brand, but if people are having barriers in getting to that and bouncing off because of some of these elements, you're losing audience, you're losing people. So very important to make sure that again, across everything we're doing, build it in these very simple pathways for people to get from A to B to C to D and so on. So yeah, we spent a lot of time looking at that, and then when we were going through this process, we were looking at plugins actually for this exact purpose, and we ended up, and the guys ended up building a tool that we hadn't realised at the time, and we built that into the site, which we launched last year, and it's been a great tool as far as people accessing the website in the last festival, which we still ran during lockdown during the pandemic with mainly digital output. We had some great feedback from people being able to access the website, be able to navigate the website, and be able to use the tool that gives them the ability to be able to change the way they view what we're doing. So being able to just change the very basic things, like Gary was saying, is very important to a lot of people. I'm autistic, my wife's autistic, and we have sort of all sorts of elements that we like to tweak. I know lots of other people we know in the industry also, and outside the industry, like use these and need to be able to change these bits and pieces to be able to feel comfortable and be able to engage with what you're doing. So yes, UAccess is a good tool that actually is simple to use. And again, it's for an arts organization like ourselves, it doesn't take me any management and it's cost effective. So none of us have vast amounts of money and time. So you want to use that sort of, you want to be able to use tools in this way to sort of help benefit yourself and your audience. That's me.
Thanks so much, Darren. That's really kind of you. So look, in conclusion from us, from the both of us, I think that beyond compliance, beyond the legal elements, we believe it's really important. It just puts it in the sort of user's hands. It has a brand benefit. It drives reach in terms of the people that actually can access your site and use it as you intended. And that's the key. It's not just about, it's not changing something to make it different. It's actually changing it to make it work as the way you wanted for everyone. Easy to install. And as I said, really the key there, and Darren backed it up, is it puts it in the user's hands. So, accessibility core code, accessibility, really important. And actually, by the way, Roberta said it, really good for search as well, because accessible code is good for Google and Bing, etc. But tools like our tool, and there are many others out there, put it in your users' hands. If they want bigger text, different colors, different contrasts, background changes, highlighted links, whatever it may be, it really helps them to view your work, your site, your functionality in the way that they need it. And I think that's our sort of key and final point. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, Roberta. We'll hand back.
Brilliant, thanks. That was really cool. So I think we've got time for some Q&A now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, guys. That was very informative. Lots of questions have come in, and we will try our best to get round to all of them. If we don't cover all of them today, we'll make sure that they are covered within the resources that we follow up. So if we don't have time to answer, please don't worry. We'll try and get that information over to you. So, first question that is coming in is all about, and there's a few different questions on this, all about alt text. So I don't know, Roberta, if you've got any sort of top tips for what makes really good alt text, and does that differ if you're for social media or anything like that, or does that all kind of work the same way?
I think alt text is the general rule is to keep it succinct and descriptive and accurate, and keep it up to about 125 characters for the description itself. The purpose of them are, imagine you're playing that game where someone's describing something and you're drawing it. You have no idea what you're looking at because you can't see it. So the idea is to use that text to enhance that, to explain what it is and why you're using an image.
That's great. I'm rubbish at those games as well. But yeah, that absolutely makes total sense, doesn't it? That
I'll send out some good example hashtags, not hashtag, alt text, basically, with the resources. So I'll get some demonstration examples together.
Perfect. That's great. Lots of really great questions coming in, Gary, about the tool. So a lot of people seem really excited about the kind of stuff that you're doing. There's a couple of questions there. Obviously, one on price and those sort of things. So, what's the best way for people to be able to find out? Is if we put your contact information in there and they can get in touch with you to pricing, or do you have something that we can share?
Yes, indeed. No, absolutely. You can share. Please do share details, but we've tried to keep it quite affordable. So base price is £500 a year for the tool, or £50 a month for people that want to test and try it. What we will also say, though, is we maintain all accessibility aspects of the tool without any further charges, if you see what I mean. So this is served separately to the site. If there's a change in regulation, a change in the way that accessibility is seen, we make those updates without any further charge. So it's a managed service, or what our horrible industry would call SaaS, software as a service.
I think we all also fairly familiar
I
with
love
that.
an acronym.
Absolutely. And there was another question about, does that tool work for different languages? So if you've got a website which is speaking multiple languages and scripts, does that still work absolutely fine with that?
Absolutely, it does for the site itself, yes. And in fact, if you look at, we've got multiple clients in Wales, for instance, Sport Wales, Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, etc. So absolutely it does. What we haven't done yet is to translate the interface of the application into as many languages as we would like. So I think if people out there have got a German site or French site or whatever, please ask us. What it will do is change the site. But what we haven't got is enough languages in the actual tool itself as we would like, so, yet anyway. So,
perfect.
But it's an easy change to just make a request. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that, Gary. Roberta, how do a question about the screen readers again that we sort of covered at the beginning? How do screen readers manage links and things like that? So is there any kind of advice about how you're sort of creating links and the naming conventions on those sort of things?
Yeah, so screen readers will read out the link. So it's better to use a descriptive wording as the link text rather than the whole URL, because sometimes they can be very long. And this will not only describe what should describe what the page is that you're going to, rather than click here. It should be discernible. You should be able to tell where you're going with it. And if you follow those simple rules, that works really well for screen readers.
Great. Absolutely tons of questions coming in. I'll be trying to just fire through some of these. You mentioned, Roberta, about audio description. So there's a few just sort of wanting clarification on that, and what that is.
Say, for example, you've got a video, and what's going on is that there's a man walking down the street. He bends down to pick up a newspaper, but there's just music on the top, and you would never know. What the audio descriptive service will do, they'll say, there is a man walking down the street. He's bending down to pick up a newspaper. So it'll describe the images as they're happening.
Can I make an extra suggestion there, Roberta?
Yeah.
On your TV remote, guys who are listening, almost certainly there'll be an AD button, and sometimes our cats press it by mistake. Do they? And what you'll find is that the TV program actually says, "Man walking down the street picks up newspaper." It's an interesting way to experience it. So sorry, that's just a
top tip.
Yeah, I think that's great. A question here, but both for Gary and Darren potentially. Are there ways for you to be able to track whether people are using that accessibility tool and how much it's being used and what it's doing? Is that something, any metrics you have available to you, Darren? Are you able to see that?
We were just talking about this yesterday, weren't we, Gary?
We were indeed, yeah. So we've been worried initially about GDPR issues, but we are changing the structure of our sort of contractual agreements if clients are happy to actually record that. We initially avoided it because we were worried that it might expose details that perhaps we didn't want to. But I think there is a lot of demand out there for it, and it's something that can easily be added. We track, U-Access is served from our URL. We can easily track interactions. Of course, what people do on the site is already tracked, Darren, isn't it, from Google Analytics, etc. But we are very, very keen to add that. So yeah, it's a current conversation, Darren, isn't it?
Coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon.
Very good, very good. Just time for a couple of more questions just before we're approaching 3 o'clock. But like I say, please don't worry if we don't get around to it. We will send that in the resources. A kind of question for everyone, really, I guess, is: do you think that so every web designer or anyone that's working within your website, do you think that this is sort of information and knowledge they should already have, or do you need to get specialist people in to be able to sort of bring that into the team? You know, what's your thoughts on that? Is this something that all web designers really should have a good understanding of, making this accessible?
I would say probably it's all website designers should, but it's not often that they do. So in my experience, it's about, you know, you really only get to the bottom of what's accessible and what's not accessible when you start doing the user testing and things like that. So you know, things always come to light after you've designed a site as well, because there's only so many automated checks you can do.
Yeah, I mean, agreed, Roberta. And I think it's sort of, you said in your element, a human check, you know, is that we changed our presentation today because we had a bit of title text that was over a gradient image, and actually it wasn't that clear at the top. You know, that sort of element, I think, is clear, and any graphic designer should know that. I think on the coding side, I think it's good practice for search, for accessibility. Structuring your site with the proper code definitely. And all tags is great for search, right? You know, Google's title elements, like you said, in the tabs of your browser, if your H1s are set properly and the page is tab navigable, it's good for everyone, not just for people who've got accessibility barriers.
Well-coded sites will load faster, as well as, you know, it's if you're optimizing your images and all that kind of thing. So I think site speed is actually a accessibility consideration as well.
And we're even going as far as, like, you know, speaking to our participants within our festival that we run each year about kind of how to be more accessible with everything they do. So I think it's important to have those conversations and be very clear from the start, and everyone understand kind of what's the best ways forward for this. So it's not just for the designers, it's for the teams to understand. I even distributed this information to our wider team at the festival this year to sort of say, well, when we're producing artwork, when we're producing these different elements, we all need to keep these elements in mind to make sure that we're not, one, we're sticking to a brand guideline that, you know, for the organization, but also to something that people can, you know, access easily.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that kind of whole organizational wide sort of approach to something, it's not just down to the web guys or, you know, anyone that's dealing with that. It's something that we're all spotting and all kind of taking ownership for, I think is a really great ethos to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Great stuff. Now we're approaching 3 o'clock, so I think that's all we've got time for. I just want to say a massive thank you to Roberta and Gary and Darren, and obviously Amanda behind the scenes, who's working on captions for today's event. As I said at the beginning, we're going to be sending you a full recording of this session. We'll be sending you all the slides that we used today and any useful resources that you may need that was mentioned as well. We'll provide you with contact information, so if you want to get in touch with us or Gary or Darren, they'll be on there as well, so you can reach out and ask any questions that you want to afterwards. Thank you so much for coming. I'm seeing literally all these thank yous all coming up all in the chat, so hopefully you found that useful. You're going to be sent a survey as well in the next couple of hours, so please tell us what you thought, and that will help shape for future content that we do. So all to say is thank you very, very much, and we hope to see you on a webinar again very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.